So I did this one yesterday, and I wasn't real careful with how I started off. So what I did is I said, all right, obviously subtract the 2, divide the 5. I know that's going to happen. And then it's kind of tempting to say, well, no solution, because I don't know the angles where sine is negative 2/5. Like, those aren't places that we memorize. But that's not to say that sine can't be negative 2/5. When we memorize the unit circle, we can't memorize all 360 degrees. I mean, that's just not realistic. I guess you could, it would just be kind of unnecessary. But sine goes up as much as 1 and down as much as negative 1, so it hits negative 2/5 somewhere. Unfortunately, I just don't know what that angle is. Now, if this spot has about a y value of negative 2/5, over here, this spot has a sine of negative 2/5. Now, this one's not that bad, because I can still get the decimal equivalency of it. If I want to know what angle has a sine of negative 2/5, well, that's why we did inverse functions. The angle that has a sine of negative 2/5, I can throw in my calculator like that. All right, that's what this is saying. This is a fancy way to say the angle that has a sine of negative 2/5. I can't tell you what that angle is because I don't memorize it, but that means the same thing. So, in radian mode, I could type that in my calculator and get negative 0.412. And so that would be, oh wait, well that can't be right either. So two things I've messed up. One of them I plan on coming back to. But the directions say between 0 and 2 pi. Well, this isn't between 0 and 2 pi. So to get the same spot between these values, I would need to go all the way around, so add 2 pi, because my calculator's only going to give me that one answer that's in the range of inverse sine, so actually 5.872. So I did all of that to figure out about 5.872 radians is one place that has that sine value. But I knew there was another one over here, and I kind of struggled to think of a way, algebraic way, to figure out what that was. Because it's not exactly like, I mean, I guess I could do 2 pi minus this would give me this much, and then I could say pi plus that gives me that much. So I guess that would work. But the mistake that I made at the beginning, other than not reading this directions, was also it said use a graphing utility. So really, doing it by hand is fine. It's not going to hurt you to practice, but they really wanted you to do was graph it. Here's where it's graphed. Where it equals 0 is where the y values are 0, so that would be the x-axis. I've already changed my window settings here between 0 and 2 pi. That's just left over from last time. So here's my two answers. So do you remember how to use your calculator to approximate those? Okay, then let's go over it just to be safe, because this is pretty important for the ACT too. If you do second trace, it gives you some options of stuff that is good at calculating, and zeros is one of them. And so all you have to do is, if I want to know this 0, it's going to ask left bound. So make sure your cursor is a little bit to the left of that x-intercept before you hit enter. It's going to ask you to give a right bound. So move your cursor somewhere to the right of that x-intercept before you hit enter. And what you're really doing is giving it a range of values to search from. Because if you don't, it doesn't know which one you're trying to find. Hit enter to skip guess, and then it jumps to that point. So here's the one that I got from my calculator already. 5.872. Right, that's the one I wrote down. But then there was this other one. So second trace, 0, left bound means the cursor needs to be to the left of that x-intercept. So move it over. Hit enter. Right bound means the cursor needs to be to the right before you hit enter. Guess is helpful sometimes, but not for us. And then it will just jump and tell you that value. 3.553. 3.553. So those are the two places that you go. So this quiz will be no calculator, so you don't have to be worried about studying that for the quiz or anything, but that's what they're asking you to do. And if you don't remember this, or if you didn't use that very much in algebra, I really recommend that you practice that every once in a while, calculating zeros, because that's very helpful for other math courses and for the ACT.